My skin changes color. In winter it's very pale, and in summer it bronzes up. My skin is fragile. It tears and scars easily. And yeah, skin has always felt quite smooth to me, and it's something that I take joy in and am proud of. And that comes from a culture of knowing how to moisturize, which I hold on to dearly, because there's not many things that I can trace back to a lineage of learning from the women before me, but that's one of them. So I really take a lot of joy in that, and it makes me feel like I've taken care of myself in a way that I was taught to. And it's like a secret thing, you know, as well. It feels cold, so I've always had really cold feet and cold hands, and that's been an interesting journey. And not only does it feel cold, but it heats up. When the blood finally gets to my fingers and my toes, it's like my hands are on fire, and they swell up and turn red and pink and blue. And so that's been an interesting journey throughout my life also. I'm really lucky, I think, because when I was little, there were some tests and hospital visits that were done that I wasn't privy to the reasons why. And I was such a happy-go-lucky child that I never asked questions, and was quite happy to be in hospital and quite happy to be taken out of school, and never felt any sense of doom about it. And then learning or thinking about it again as an adult and learning the reasons why, I really appreciate that I didn't have that fear instilled around me. Instead, there was sort of a sense of wonder about this changing of color and swelling and just something different. It didn't seem to affect me in a bad way. It just seemed like an experiment that happened with the weather. So I think as a mixed race person, in growing up in different countries, I spent a lot of time observing people observe me and listening to their reasons and opinions and whether they liked it or not. And I guess because of the way that I grew up, being an observer was really important to me, and because of that, I think it didn't affect me in a way of I felt judged, more as a collecting of information on how to behave around certain people. So for instance, I knew when I moved to Perth, taken out of California and moved to Perth, which seemed like a completely foreign and different world, and being told that my skin was beautiful by a certain crowd of people, and after feeling that or being told that it wasn't beautiful by a different crowd in America, or not acceptable, it never felt real. It just felt like other people's stories. And so when I was in this crowd of it being a beautiful thing in Australia, and being put into like a modelling school, and being the person of colour in a crowd full of Caucasian children and playing a part for them, that's what it felt like. It just felt kind of removed, playing a part for those people. Mm-hmm. And also, and especially I think in older communities, so the older women who were running the modelling and the older women who were at church, knowing or feeling that they judged my skin upon seeing me, and feeling like I was put in a different category, and I felt like a collecting of information taught me how to behave to please those people. But it was all around my hair and my colour. And that's about as much processing as I was capable of as a small child. And then getting older, getting into sort of adolescence, my skin broke out completely in pimples. And there was a good sort of decade of my life where I remember my dad said to me one day, "You look like you've been in a car accident," which was heartbreaking to me. So I spent a really big chunk of my teenage life trying to cover my skin due to acne and not knowing how to deal with it or what to do.
Particularly white, fair. My skin, well, I've always just accepted my skin. I never ever tried to go brown, even when I was a teenager. I thought, well, that's ridiculous. I burn up so quick and get freckles. And so I never ever tried to go brown. I always wanted brown skin, like olive skin, you know, because I like it. It looks nice. And but with white skin, like, you couldn't go out in the sun for a long time because you get burnt. But I like the look of olive skin better than white skin and black skin. I like in between. If I had a choice, that nice olive skin. But I've got white skin, so you just have to live with what you've got. My skin was more freckly when I was a child because we were out in the sun and the beach all the time. So my face was always covered in freckles, and my back and everywhere in freckles, so much so that the bus driver that drove me to school used to call me Freckles. It didn't worry me, it was sort of cute. So as a kid, that's what it was always like. But because I remember getting burnt once when I was about 9, so bad that I got blisters all over my back, and and I could hardly put my school uniform on. I'll never ever forget it. It was just so bad. And I thought, I'm never getting burnt like this again. Like when I was 9, I was in year 4. And so I used to wear t-shirts a lot in the water to try not get burnt. But my nose was always burnt, I remember, and my face. But it wasn't as painful as on the back. But I remember when I was young and I went to Spain, I was in Spain and we were playing gridiron on the beach. And we were out in the middle of the day and I never even got burnt at all. And I couldn't believe it. So I think the Australian sun is very severe. But just comparing those two incidents, I was really surprised actually, because and it was great because we were out on the beach for a couple of hours or more and I didn't get burnt, whereas a few minutes outside I'll already start getting burnt here. I never even think of how other people see my skin, because I had a lot of good comments on my skin, because people, they don't think I'm as old as I am, and I have friends down at Tumbarumba, George and Regina, and they're 10 years younger than me, and they're always saying how nice my skin is for someone my age, and which is 66 for those people who are watching, be 67 this year. Yeah, so I suppose that's because I've been keeping out of the sun for so long. I suppose it has to have its benefits in some way. And it was like, I know with African American people, it was like some status symbol to have a white girlfriend, you know, but I could never understand the racial side of things because I never went through it, and I never saw like people's skin as this colour. It never made a difference to me because they're a person. I don't see people in relation to skin colour. I never have. Like your dad was your dad, although I like brown eyes and dark skin. But, you know, it's a person. I can't imagine why people don't like someone because of their skin, because it's the person. I myself don't understand that. But would I prefer to have olive skin? Yeah, because it looks nicer, especially when you're young and you're a teenager and you want to wear shorts instead of in these bright white legs. And I wouldn't go and have fake tan and all that sort of stuff. I just accepted my skin as it was, and I never worried me. I never had acne, so I reckon that's pretty bad.
Yeah.
I had acne. When we went through places like India, because I was on a tour, for the people watching, I was on a tour with other young people travelling from Kathmandu to London over a period of about 3 months. And I remember going through some of the villages in India, and actually broke down in a village in the middle of nowhere so they don't have tourists. And people would stare at you because we had white skin, we were fair, whereas they were darker. They weren't black like African Americans or Negroes, but they're still, you know, really tan. You wouldn't see the women. I don't know, the women were probably working. You always seem to see men everywhere in India when you'd pull up, and they'd all be just staring, you know, at us. Also, I remember when I was in Morocco, and all these the guys used to go crazy over, because I had blue eyes, fair hair, and freckly skin. Now, you won't believe this, but people really liked my freckled skin because they just had plain olive skin, didn't they? But that was a first. People they liked the fair skin, and they liked the freckles, because I suppose it was different. But yeah, I thought that's unusual. I thought, wow, how about that? And I remember that. But I remember in India and those countries where they didn't see fair skin, blue eyes, fair hair people that much, you know, and they would stare and look. I never worried me though. Like, they weren't making fun of me or that. I was just different, so they stared at us. You know, they didn't mistreat us or call us names or throw anything at us or whatever, because we were different. Oh, in Afghanistan and Iran, well, we were aware that they were completely covered. I had no inclination or knowledge about what they thought of people. I couldn't understand why the women were completely covered, especially in Afghanistan. They had this little slit, and in Iran the women were covered, but because the Shah was in control of Iran, he was trying to modernise it, so you would get Iranian girls dressed in more modest clothes. But because of that culture, even though I didn't understand it, I was always covered. And I think it was cold weather anyway, so it was covered. But walking down the street in Isfahan in Iran, I used to get grabbed because I didn't know their culture and what they thought of us. So I just acted like I did back home, you know, walk down the street and stuff like that. But yeah, but because we weren't covered, and I didn't know this at the time, and when I say covered I mean head, everything, and also because I was by myself walking down the street and you get grabbed and you get pinched on the bottom, I didn't realise that in those cultures a woman by herself, and especially uncovered, is like a whore and is open season. I didn't realise that. So I don't know whether, and also the white skin, they go crazy about that anyway. But I do remember in Morocco going to a disco, and there was one girl on our tour. She was African American. she had dark skin, and she was promiscuous, and I'd never met girls before who'd go out looking for a guy for the night. Like, that was foreign to me. I was shocked when I travelled and saw girls who did that, and this girl was like that. And we went to a disco, and she wanted, and hardly anyone would dance with her. And I would get dances all the time, and guys asking you out and blah blah, and it was because of the white skin and the blue eyes and that. And that was in Morocco, and people used to make a fuss over me. I didn't think I was beautiful or anything. I was attractive, I suppose, and had a good figure, but I wasn't like that because I was a sporty person. But that's what happened there. I remember that quite vividly. Yeah.
It's white. Keeps my body together. It's a very good skin. Got a lot of scars physically from a lot of surgeries. I guess that's the only one that counts since we're talking about my skin. Yes, actually I do have a scar on my knee from when I was little. My grandmother's place backed up to another place, and they both had like a concrete wall, and there was a little gap between them, and I used to like walking on that wall, right on the top, walking along, and I slipped one day and my leg fell through, and there it is. Got a scar. This was and Dad took us, well, brought us back to Persia, to his home country, not mine. It's got its moments. It can be quite rough. It's been roughened up a fair bit. Well, I've got sensitive skin to chemicals, and perhaps the modern age, I don't know. But my skin does react to even fumes from chemicals. I can't walk into a hairdresser. The fumes in the hairdressers actually set off my skin. Oh, it gets itchy and burning, and I have to walk out, get some fresh air. Haven't been to a hairdresser in yonks because of that. I have to dye my own hair with henna because of it. Oh yeah, no, well, I am an exotic woman, so henna suits me just fine, thank you. Sorry for that. Sorry, Chris. You can edit that part out. When I was younger, I used to have a skin reaction or allergic reaction for my skin from eggs. And